All right, welcome to another episode of Servant Leadership Library, where we explore the principles and practices and people shaping the future of leadership through service. I'm your host, Nick Paulukow, CEO of One-to-One, a managed IT and cybersecurity firm. And today's conversation is going to be a wild ride through the bold ideas of critical thinking and a little bit of Android aspiration. Wow. So joining us is someone that says he almost has the nerve to call himself a visionary. He's the director of technology at LearnQuest, a relentless out-of-the-box thinker and a man who questions everything, not to be difficult, but to drive innovation, insight, and excellence. He's a husband, father, and his own words, an aspiring android, which is a title, I don't know, that ranges in all different areas. So we'll learn about that today. With a career that spans a wide range of roles and organizations, he developed an uncanny ability to cut through complexity, elevate situations from every angle, and craft solutions that actually work. So today we dig into what that means to lead through questions, how operational excellence meets creative disruption, and why the best leaders don't just serve their teams, they challenge them to grow. So buckle up and get ready for a conversation that might make and see your leadership, maybe even yourself, a little differently. So let's get into it. Jon Elinsky, welcome. Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself? This is great.
Hello, Nick. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
This is very cool. I'm also going to bring you guys in next time I try to have a job interview because that was like the greatest thing I've ever heard.
I love it.
I don't know if anyone has ever described me anywhere close to as cool as that, but that's great. So thanks for that.
Absolutely.
So as far as who I am, I've been doing technology and development mostly for like 30-something years.
Wow, okay.
Ever since I was a kid, really. I was lucky enough to get in at SAP when I was, what year was that? I was like 22. And I did some temp work with them for their marketing show that they do every year. It's really big. And back in the 90s, stuff wasn't so automated, so they needed to bring in slave labor kids to like worry about running the tech room.
Wow.
Well, I mean, we sat in like a double cubicle with like 5 or 6 people for like 2 months.
Wow.
Working on like all different CEOs presentations and all that they would send in. They would just like throw something together and send it to SAP. And they would feed it to us, and we'd clean it up and check it and logo it and everything. And then we also went down to the show in Orlando and worried about like getting them all in the right breakout rooms and supporting the speakers and making sure the machines worked and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, that's neat.
Yeah, it was cool. I was a kid. I had messed around with computers since I was a little teeny kid, but I never really did anything like that until then, it was a great experience. And I learned a lot of good stuff, and I was around a lot of cool people. And the folks that did that at SAP were the communications media team, which included the public website folks and the intranet team and stuff like that. So I was around all of this new stuff at the time that I didn't really expose to, which was web technology.
Wow.
Basically like hanging around them for all those months, and on the show I was like seeing stuff, and I was like, this is cool. And I'm pretty much like a self-learner, a pretty aggressive, just pick things apart.
Right.
And I was like, I can do that, right? So then a temp job ended, and I went back home, and I was now unemployed. So I went out and bought some books, and I sat at my computer, and I was like, how do I now write programming for websites? And I did, and I called them back up, and I said, I know how to do this now. Give me a job, and they did. So that's where I started. So then 5 years at SAP, I was in charge of the intranet team by the time I left.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, there was
Talk about an interview, right? I figured this out. Just sign me up.
Sort of, yeah. I mean, it was. I was lucky enough to get to know a lot of the people there, and knowing the people is what matters, right?
Absolutely.
So they know who my work ethic and everything else already, right? So I just pretty much had to say I have skills now to offer, and so they brought me in.
Wow.
I was still kind of like junior grade, like apprentice assistant,
right?
Like minion, but it was definitely cool, and I learned a lot. The people in that team were very, very good, and they were very friendly and helpful, and I owe a lot to my experience at that time because I just pretty much like learned from everybody that I could, and they were all very cool about it. So strange the way that it worked. A lot of them like left the team, and the team kind of fell apart, and then it was like just me and one other person who was like the graphic designer was like the only people left. Even the manager of the team was gone, and so we kind of like rebuilt the whole team. So we hired people, and then we had the whole new team for the second half of my tenure there.
And how'd you go from SAP to where you're at now?
Well, I was still young, right? So at the time, I didn't have a lot of experience in the best ways to partake in a giant corporation that's multinational and owned by a German, headquarters and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I have a lot of strong opinions.
How'd that work out in corporate America?
Not that great. That hasn't changed, but you know what? Like, I wouldn't change it. I champion. So again, I've sort of grown up in a service environment, right?
See.
So most of the development that I've ever done has usually been camped in sort of like back office in a sense, in some way. So in my opinion, those people are service department people. We're enabling other people to do their job at the company, right?
Okay.
And so I often went to bat and championed that cause. I took that very seriously for the people that I supported, as well as the tools that I was building. So that didn't go very well for because again, I was like 20, 22, and I was essentially a kid with all these, giant buildings full of like grim old German SAP developers who, their mail program, for example, didn't do word wrap. And I kind of was like, hey, maybe that should, just an idea. So I was kind of a loudmouth kid in a sense, like for good reasons, in my opinion,
right.
but like it wasn't appreciated very much for being a kid. So it's still not appreciated very much for being an adult terribly much, depending on the.
You've just matured that. That's what I'm understanding.
I mean, like, I guess the facial hair and the gray helps people not like brush me off as much, but generally it's not always appreciated depending on who you're talking to.
I gotcha.
But I definitely have strong opinions. So that's why I left SAP.
I see. Well, it sounds like a lot of learning, right? Like
it was
it gives you a lot of opportunities to learn, it sounds like.
It really did.
Yeah. And from a technical and probably leadership or development level too, I would assume.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. So from a very early age, I got a lot of experience seeing a lot. I mean, there's a lot of management folks around SAP at this corporation size that it was. I got to work at the headquarter building.
I see.
And actually, they opened the headquarter building while I was there, so I was like new. It was brand new. We moved there and everything. It was cool. But yeah, there was a lot of like role model type people for me there that I was able to learn a lot of good stuff with, not just technical, but also professional and leadership and all kinds of stuff. I mean, some were better than others.
It sounds like it gave you a really nice base that
yes,
allowed you to launch off.
It was a cool education in a sense, right?
Yeah.
So like, again, I don't have a lot of formal education. A lot of what I know is self-taught or sort of, school of hard knocks.
Yeah.
But I've been fortunate enough at times to be around some really great people. So even after I left SAP, I was unemployed. And I had always wanted to try search and rescue. And I was like, well, I got severance pay because I got laid off from SAP.
I see.
So I'm like, I'm going to take a search and rescue class. And I loved it. And I loved it so much, and I was actually really good at it, I guess. So like I said, hey, if I could be an apprentice instructor with these people I took the class with, let me know. And so after I took another couple classes and I got my certification, they were like, you still want to do that? And I went and I became an apprentice search and rescue instructor for a while. Yeah. And same thing. Chief instructor there, his name's Eric Martin. He taught me tons about leadership.
And do you still do that today?
I don't. I miss it terribly. I miss it more than anything else I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
I would love to go back and do that some more. I was a rope rescue instructor primarily, and I loved it.
Oh, I love that. I used to be in the fire service, so that's a yearning that I yearn for every day, and I did high-end goal rescue and everything. So when I hear you say that,
it doesn't go away.
I have a fascination with law enforcement is what I wanted to get into, and now I'm sitting here talking to you as a CEO from a technology firm. But it was all about serving and helping other people, and I really found fascination of like how the dogs did search and rescue, right? So when I was in the fire department, we did a lot of assisting in search and rescue. It was just fascinating to see how like you could work with a partner that was an animal, which is pretty fascinating. So that's neat.
Yeah, the canine folks have an amazing relationship with their partners.
Yeah,
it's always been impressive to see.
Wow. So you went from SAP to now like search and rescue, like finding people, and being an instructor, and then how did you leave that and go to your next journey?
Well, I didn't terribly much leave it. I didn't do it terribly full time.
Okay, I understand.
So mostly like the teaching thing here on the East Coast, as you might know from being fire, is most of the rescue stuff is done by fire departments.
Right.
It's not a lot of private stuff, and the private stuff is all like volunteer people who just want to learn how to do a thing. We did certain like confined space classes at industries and whatever, but it wasn't enough to be like my full-time job.
I see.
So I ended up working at another German-based company where Jack Naleg was in charge of.
I see.
So at Phoenix Contact in Harrisburg, and I used to go on weekends. I used to drive like an hour to go to Phoenix Contact, work all week in the cubicle, get done on Friday, drive back past my house, stop, switch my gear, drive over to North Jersey, stay in North Jersey all weekend doing search and rescue training until like Sunday night, drive home, go to bed, get up, drive back to Harrisburg, go back to work for like a while.
Wow. Wow. What a passion probably.
Couldn't
then,
do that anymore. I'll tell you what, that was tough. But I loved it. I really, really did. So that was cool. So yeah, working in my tech job, I'm certainly not like the tech mold. So all over my cubicle walls are like pictures of like people like ice climbing the Khumbu ice fall in Everest.
Wow.
And stuff. And like people are like, "What's all this stuff?" And I was like, don't what do you do on the weekends? Don't you like just code for fun? I'm like, no, I go climbing and like I teach search and rescue. They're like, really? I'm certainly not. I don't fit the mold of like the tech nerd.
Right. Well, it gives you probably a reset. I found myself it's a reset, right? Like from technology and problems that exist that aren't tangible things that you can touch all the time. It's nice to get outside of that, right?
And it gives you perspective. So you can always use a broader perspective no matter what you're doing. Like the tech and corporate world gives me perspective in areas, and other areas give me perspective in the corporate world, right? So being able to understand, especially when it comes to leadership, right? Being able to be in a leadership position in various like aspects and various contexts, really helps fill in the gaps in the tapestry on what kind of like person that you have, what kind of insight that you have.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Kind of segue into that, right? Like share a little bit about like the journey of in your current role, right? I understand that you're really developing and using the skills that you just talked about right now in a whole different environment, right?
Maybe.
Maybe.
We hope so.
It sounds like a fun challenge.
It definitely is. So I've been at LearnQuest now for 11 plus years.
Wow.
Which is
twice
as long as I have been in any other job.
Right.
So it's quite it feels like forever for me personally. And I had been in charge of the development team for most of that tenure.
I see.
Adjacent to the IT department and stuff. But now some changes have occurred in the company, and some things have shifted around, and now I am doing the lead technology role. I'm in charge of IT development and anything else that relates to tech of any kind, which is kind of a big new thing for me.
Right.
So I was never officially IT in my life.
Right.
I've always been like kind of right next to it. But
adjacent.
Yeah, IT adjacent for
now
sure.
You're just jumping right in.
I really did. So yeah, which is my way actually.
Welcome to the pond.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody that know I have a nickname in my family kind of. They know it's like as just Black Diamond, right? So like my brother and I, first time we ever went kayaking, we went on a tour, but we went on a tour on the Youghiogheny River, which is like class 4 or 5.
Okay.
And we were the only people in kayaks. The rest of the people were in the rafts, and the people in the rafts thought we were guides, and they were like, "Well, how many times have you done this?" We're like, "This is the first time."
So you just jump right in.
Yeah,
and you come back to live to tell about it, right?
So far.
Hey, it's a good time, right? It's a good time.
Yeah.
I remember the last time that I was whitewater rafting, and a person fell out and had never. We're in the rapids, right, in the Poconos area, and they fall out. And they're like, listen, remember, you're training. Stop trying to stand up, you know? And you can really get hurt. But it's like anything in life, right? Like, what have you trained for this, right?
Yeah,
or it becomes pretty dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, that's neat. Do you remember, like, a moment in your career? Like, it sounds like there's a lot of things that you've realized, right? But, like, when it came to, like, leadership and your ability to kind of switch from kind of giving direction and now being a leader and like serving the group that you worked for?
I guess that's probably two things come to mind actually. So the point in SAP that I mentioned where it switched over from, I really changed position in a sense, changed role at SAP a lot in that little time span.
I see.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I went from like, assistant apprentice minion to essentially in charge of the intranet team and rehired all of the people on the team pretty much except one, and rebuilt that entire team and was in charge of that team before I left in a 5-year span. So that was like a whirlwind of a change. And at that point, a little bit after I hired the first couple of people and started to be like, oh, this is my team now. That's when it really first hit me that like I'm not just a guy on the team or whatever. This is my team. I'm responsible for these people. I gave them their jobs. That realization hit me. That's like a whole different like responsibility. Like what's that line? With great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I had that until all of a sudden I realized I was like, I guess I have both now. So that was weird. That and when I started teaching search and rescue, right? So I liked teaching it better than I liked doing it.
Right. You have to learn. You have to understand it really, really, really well to be able to teach, I would assume. So like it takes a certain level of skill to be able to teach it.
Yeah. So like a lot of things, there's two parts to it, right? There's the bit that you can't hardly teach and you can maybe inspire, or you can tell people, you know what, maybe this isn't for you, right? And then there's the parts that you can teach, right? And I think generally the accepted opinion is the teachable parts are the easy part, right? Because you can teach anybody just about anything if they're willing to learn. You know how to teach it, you teach it, they learn it, you're good. It's the other part that's tougher.
We say that sometimes if a right-handed person is trying to write left-handed every day, it's probably a really bad experience and frustrating for them, right? Because you're really trying to get it out, but it's not something you're innately able to do.
It's against the grain, right?
Yeah.
So like helping people, you know, if they're dedicated to try to learn how to do that and it's against their natural wiring or whatever, that's the tough bit. But that's the challenging fun part, is being able to like help mentor, guide, coach folks like that. And I really enjoyed those people when we were teaching search and rescue, because I mean we had people like bawling their eyeballs out and all kinds of stuff. They're like, I don't know what I'm doing.
I'm not jumping.
I can't do it. Yeah. We did a TV show once. It was a reality TV show called Help Wanted, and we had these 5 people. We had put them through all these different contests of like search and rescue things, and one of them was rappelling over Catterskill Falls, right in the water.
Oh yeah.
And man, they were not all about that. They were freaking out.
It's a whole trust thing, right? Do you trust yourself? Do you trust the team?
You trust the equipment.
I remember doing that, and we were doing training just here locally. And on Chickies Rock, which we probably weren't supposed to be there, but we were anyway with fire department. And one of the gentlemen was rappelling and got stuck. And so inadvertently, fun turned into an actual rescue.
Yeah.
Where we actually had to live, I rappelled down, and we had to then live move him over to another rope, right? Yep. And so it takes a lot of trust in just kind of like leading people, right? That's what I found so fascinating about a group of people that you've never met before, that you go through training, and all of a sudden you have this inherent trust with each other.
Yeah,
that is it's just a great bond. And I find it differently in the work environment, right? I've said to other people that are in law enforcement, everything, like, you'll not find that same bond in work because people can leave, right?
Yeah.
Like, but in those things of the fire department or police department, you're not leaving the person, right? I mean, you may leave the profession, but in the time of when everything's hitting the fan, you're not generally leaving them behind. And they're like, there isn't that same expectation in business, which some days would be a nice yearning, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's really different. And like I've never been in the military, but like my dad was a Marine, and I have my best friends who were military, and you never stop being military. As soon as you're talking to another military guy that you never met before, you're like best buds for like immediately. So I've never quite had that specific experience because I've never been in, but it's the same idea. Like even when we did the fundamentals search and rescue class, it's usually like 2 weekends. It's Friday night, Saturday, all day Sunday.
Okay.
Twice, right? The first one is generally all lecture, and the second one is all outdoor skills. But at the beginning of the first weekend, everybody's just random people in a classroom. And at the end, when you're back in the classroom on Sunday, at the end of the second one, you can really see it completely different. The entire room energy is different. Everybody's gelled. They've been through all of the
confidence.
We did like a test, like a training mission thing, and like a mock mission that we would do and everything. So they really went through it. We made them sleep out overnight, wintertime, whatever. So they went through a pretty tough experience. And you can just see it in the
Right,
room, and
the bond, how
that's
quickly
cool.
it
I
comes
missed
together.
that.
Yeah, that's neat. Well, let's like kind of apply that to kind of your approach now, right? So, as the director of technology, and
Yeah.
as you note, is a new role, how are you approaching developing or empowering that team now?
Yeah, well, it's a little bit not the same, but it's a similar related approach in the sense that we have a lot of pain points, and I try to foster like a holistic environment of the pain points, like saying, hey, we're gonna get through this, but these folks have to work with those folks, and we have to get these things that are new that we didn't do before to really happen in order to improve what we're doing. Otherwise, we're still just struggling for air and trying to keep our heads above water. We're trying to get past that point and grow. But to do that, there's things that we haven't done before that we're going to have to do, and it might suck for a bit, but it's going to get better.
Just that encouragement and then kind of building a plan.
Yeah, which is very similar to the same kind of speech given when somebody's struggling with a physical activity outside, is where they're like on a rope and they're like terrified that they're up on a cliff face and they're like, I can't move, and they have to get them to go down, right? And
yeah, it's not like you're pushing them, you know.
I mean, once in a while we push them. I'm not going to say we didn't push them.
You know, it creates work trauma that way.
A little bit.
So, you know, you're in a highly technical environment, right? So
Yes.
when we use the word serve, right, we talk a lot about serving on this podcast. How do you kind of take serving and applying that to kind of the fast-paced, high technical environment? Like, do you think that you can apply that same level of leadership and mentality, or do you find that difficult?
No, I do. I think it's all about empowering and enabling your folks, right? So by way of contrast, the leaders that want to do everything and control everything and decide everything and just tell their people, go do this, go do that, I find it like almost overwhelming that they certainly don't know all the answers. They're not going to have all the best answers, and whatever they're doing isn't going to be the best, and their people aren't growing. They're just doing whatever they're told, mostly out of fear.
Right.
That doesn't generate positive growth, right? That just generates, I don't know, kind of like a painful continuation of normal. But empowering your folks and supporting them and talking to them all the time, like most of the time that I have a one-on-one, the end of what I say is something to the effect of, is there anything you need from me? What can I do to make your week easier? Or is there any hurdles that you need me to check in on or enable? And also to like talk about how they might touch base with anybody else on the team or outside the team that week that I'm aware of, to give a heads up, or hey, we're going to focus on this week, whatever. Something
Something
that really
just guiding them down the path. Similar to that we were talking about doing the whitewater rafting, right? There's only one path.
Right.
You got to get there.
You're going that way. There's a hard way to go that way, and there's a better way. Yeah. But yeah, trying to help just facilitate, I think, and take away all the hurdles and the challenges as much as possible is how and keeping communication lines open.
Yeah. And if you say like, kind of describe yourself earlier, we talked about as like a critical thinker, right? And you noted like, and we chuckled, right? Like you're like, I have a mindset of questioning, right? And,
yes.
But how do you apply the questioning, like leading that team, as not like critical to them, right? Like how do you inspire them through this questioning instead of feeling like you're just asking questions and maybe they're like, well, hey, John, I got this. Like, why are you asking me another question, right? Or maybe it might overwhelm them. How do you manage that?
Well, I'm not going to say that I was always a master at this. It's certainly, and I'm still not a master of this. Anybody that's in my life that's close to me will probably tell you that. My wife, who is out there somewhere, probably will tell you this. But what I try to do is make sure that I am conveying the purpose behind why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Okay.
To just make sure that it is not in a gray area, right? I don't want people wondering, why the hell is he asking me that?
Right.
I want to make it clear that the purpose is to make sure you're enabled, that we're doing the right stuff. There's no reason to like potentially not ask and then miss something. Ask, and if it's handled, cool. And if it's not handled, then we fix it and we're good.
Right.
You don't ask, you don't know.
Right.
So I try to really keep lines of communications open, two-way. I make sure everybody in my circle, peer or beneath or above, has absolutely no reason to hesitate to say or ask me anything that they ever could think to do.
Oh, that's well said. Now, so the IT world, it never moves quickly, right?
Right, right. It's very calm.
I mean, we got plenty of time to redirect.
Sure.
But since that's facetious and that and when it moves quickly, right? So how do you make time to kind of like reflect? And as a servant leader, right? Like there's empathy and long-term thinking, and there's a culture of like prioritizing quick problems, right?
Sure.
So we're all working on things. So for you to say that's very humbling, right? Because I screw it up every day, so we're constantly learning. So how do you apply like the empathy and the long-term thinking to the pressures of we have to get it done today?
Yeah. Well, that obviously that's a tough call, but I make it clear that we're all human and we're all doing the best we can. And I mean, I expect people to be trying to do the best they can, but I don't expect that to ever be flawless. I'm not flawless. And I tell people that. I very strongly try to point out when I mess up outwardly to my team.
Right.
Hey, you know what? That one's on me. I messed that up. I forgot. I try to do that as a matter of course to like by demonstration to say, I know you're going to mess up. That's cool. I asked you to do a thing. You messed one up. Okay. People mess stuff up. Does it suck? Yeah, that sucks. And we'll have to fix it. And we have to work on it. But do the best you can do. We can only do what we can do. And usually people respect that and they rise to the challenge and they give a good effort.
Right.
And you can't ask for much more than that. Nobody's going to not ever mess up.
Right. So. Yeah, that's well said. And now let's talk about your definition of servant leadership. What would you define servant leadership to be?
I knew this one was coming. I should have studied this one
I snuck it in here towards the middle.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a shocker question. But I think I gave out my teaser earlier.
Oh, that's all right. We're going to see if everybody's listening.
I kind of already answered it, I think. It's what I try to do with all of my folks on a daily and weekly basis. I really just try to make sure I enable them, empower them, make them feel like they're valued, their contributions are important, and that they are in a good, healthy environment and not in a toxic environment or one that they have to like. I can't express enough how much I cannot abide like that rule by fear thing. Essentially, I tend to call it like the Darth Vader approach, that autocratic kind of leader. I don't even like to call it a leader. I think it's kind of offensive to call it a leader because I don't think it's leading. I think it's domineering. It's like tyrannical. I can't stand that. Matter of fact, sometimes I sign...
It's like dictatorship.
Yes, and sometimes I sign emails as tyrannical overlord.
Wow.
I do.
I bet they have to get used to that.
Actually, some of my team, like Dibio on my team particularly, he really likes that. So he calls me that a lot of times, sometimes in meetings when he maybe shouldn't, but that's okay. But yeah, I mean, I do that because I cannot stand that approach.
We have a core focus in our organization that says no corporate BS. It sounds like that's what you're kind of saying, right?
I mean, yes. And you know what? Growing up at SAP in that size of a corporation, I was exposed very early to a whole lot of BS that I don't know that I would choose to go work at a corporation that size again, just because I think it's generally a symptom that's always there in stuff as soon as you get that big.
I think you're kind of saying that maybe you didn't experience kind of servant leadership maybe there.
I mean... I wouldn't say I didn't at all, but there was a lot of that. A lot that wasn't, right? There was a lot of both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you have a story that you could share with us that maybe you saw a servant leader in someone, or you overcame a significant challenge, or it was meaningful, or you grew in some way?
Oh, suppose so. So, what would be good? Again, it's tough because I have these weird, diverse background options to choose from. So I tend a lot to go to search and rescue for this because it's got that brotherhood effect thing in it a little bit more, right? So there's something interesting that I experienced a little bit early on when I was in search and rescue, and I had this idea. I've always been seeking an environment to participate in that had this like brotherhood sort of thing. Like it's my friends, I don't know if you know anything about the idea of like role-playing games, but I'd like to consider myself a paladin in life.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And my friends always know that, so they tease me about that. But I look for that in life, and I want the questing knight kind of a role in my life. And I had thought, a lot of search and rescue, by nature, you're a lot of it's volunteer.
Right, and you're serving and
you're
helping.
putting out money, you're putting out blood, sweat, and tears, and time, and everything else to go just volunteer to help people. I was like, this has to be like the best, purest environment ever. Boy, was I wrong. Went to some conferences and stuff early on, and I was blown away by how much there was like the people walking around with every patch on their body, like, look at all my patches, and I know stuff because I've been doing this for 5 years, and I was like, wow, you're an arrogant ass. I was like, I did not see this coming. And so
you thought it was more selfless all the time.
I did.
Yeah.
I really, really, that one surprised me more than any other thing in my career ever, really. I did not see that one coming at all. And so the contrast between the people that were in any sort of SAR environment of that kind with like the opposite kind, right? So you got the people, there are people in there, there's plenty of people doing that are there, that are putting out their time and their money and their effort and their blood and their sweat and their everything, that are just really just trying to help people.
And they just show it differently, right?
They really do. It's inspiring, right? Especially and the leaders there, right? So the different folks that, like my chief instructor that I mentioned earlier, and like he was in charge of also the rescue team. We had a volunteer rescue team as well as the training outfit.
I see.
And it was his training outfit, but he was the chief of the team as well. And we were national instructors, so we met a lot of the other folks that from NASAR, that would National Association of Search and Rescue, that would help do these certifications and teach. So they were pretty significant in the roles, and seeing those folks and what they do, and that really made an impression on me.
It's amazing. It reminds me of I'm part of some volunteer organizations, and one has very affluent individuals that are part of it that I would never know what their job is or what their role is. And you ask them and you're like, huh? Because we're all here in service of others. And so it's really a humbling experience to see that there's people that serve so selflessly, which is really humbling. It sounds similar to what you're talking about.
That's where I'm going with it. Right. It's it just makes you go, wow. So for those, the people on the other end of the spectrum, we'll try to be nice here. It really puts that in perspective. Like, who do you think you really are? Like, how are you?
Or maybe they came from a bad situation, or that's what they learned. Or,
I guess. But I mean, like, you're treating your employees like that. They're not working for you because it's fun, probably. They need to be in that job. And you're overlord, and you're making those people cry.
Right.
Like, how dare you? You know what I mean? Like,
you get protective of that serving.
Right. I really do. It's the paladin in me. So, like, I definitely... Again, I'm a loudmouth.
Well, so let's kind of you segue right into the next one. So, how do you take?
Wait. I segued into I'm a loudmouth.
It says right here.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. Not from a loudmouth perspective, but from kind of that emotional intelligence that you're saying, right? Like you're reading the room, you're reading the person, and so how do you take like emotional intelligence that you're applying from your time of working with kind of selfless people and applying that to like in the technical world, right? Like we're both in the technical world, and the culture is a little different, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So how do you overcome that? I mean, you have probably a newer team now, or additional people to your team, and how do you build that same camaraderie?
Well,
or tips or tricks on that?
It takes a little while. I think consistency is key. And again, I have not always been good at this. I will credit my wife and my daughters for teaching me lots of stuff about this stuff. They have really helped me in that area. But you're right, in the technical role, but also in the world that we live in now. Like my company is generally entirely virtual. I've got folks from that I work with all the time from all the different cultures, right?
Wow.
So I got a lot of India folks on my team who are used to the environment that goes on in India and the manager-employee relationship that goes on there, which is really not my style.
Right.
so that was the biggest challenge for me, was to learn about that.
I see.
And understand it. And I thank my Indian employees for being open about that and helping me learn about that. So
like bridging culture differences and
yes.
maybe what would be offensive or not offensive here or whatnot.
Well, yes, but more the relationship, right? So I'll tell you, by way of example, someone just left my company that worked for me, and they told me, and this is, I will point out, this is a compliment, because at first it doesn't sound like one. But he told me very seriously and very heartfelt that never once while he was working for me did he feel like I was his manager. And first I went, is that good? I was like I wasn't sure. But he meant that because, again, from an India point of view, your manager is that Darth Vader guy, right? He's yelling at you. He's telling you, you better, and if you don't, or else, and all kinds of sort of hellacious sort of things in a common way. And I have had to overcome that. Every time I brought on a new employee, I've sensed that I could, now that I've done it a couple of times, I can tell like how they're being like cautious and whatever, and like not asking questions or not questioning me. And I really have to go into like, I tell them that I asked some of my other employees to talk to that person and tell them that when I'm saying it's totally cool to like tell me I'm being an idiot right now, tell them that it really is, so that I'm not just saying it and they're still not sure, stuff like that. So it's definitely something that I think requires very strong amount of focus and attention to be conscious of, because you never know who you're talking to,
right,
and what their background is,
right,
what their personal experience is that built whoever they are today, or their cultural one, or whatever, or
right,
the fact that maybe it's completely fine, but the last manager they had was like a total Darth Vader guy,
right,
and they're just,
it was different.
Yeah, and they're just like traumatized by that.
That's good. So how would you define your definition of success in the role that you're in, right? Not from a tactical standpoint, but from like a leading standpoint. What do you consider? Is there metrics? Is there impact? Like, what is it? What defines success for you?
That my people feel comfortable relating with me, essentially, right? So them telling me and feeling comfortable telling me uncomfortable things, right? Because if they can do that, I know I'm doing a good job, right? So someone recently just told me, hey, you know what? There's things that just changed a little bit. It's causing me some trouble, and like, I'm not really sure I know what's going on and how to move forward. And I mean, I didn't try to wring that out of them. They felt totally fine coming to me and just bringing that up.
Right.
And I mean, I thanked them for that. And I said, I'm so glad that you feel like you're comfortable enough with me and with us to be able to just throw that right out there. And then we talked about it. But that's pretty much the answer, right?
As like Patrick Lencioni says, right? You got to start with trust before you build anything else.
Yeah. Right? So if that person's not going to go to Darth Vader and be like, I'm not really comfortable in my responsibilities right now. He's just gonna be like, okay, and force choke them to death. And then,
I am not your father.
That guy is now in charge of that, right? So is this a problem for you? No, sir, it's fine. Thanks, right? I can't stand that. So
I think what I'm hearing is more authenticity, right?
Sure,
like,
yes.
Yeah, right. It gives you're an authentic person and you're approachable and that type of thing.
I try to be the same person all the time.
All the time, yeah.
Yeah, because that's who I am.
Right. I would agree.
I don't understand. I don't understand doing something else.
What's the difference?
Yeah.
Right.
I have somebody on my team that I was friends with before I offered him the job, because I had a role that I knew he would be good at, and so I offered it to him and I brought him in to work for me. And then at a certain point, after we were working for like, I don't know, a couple of weeks or something, he said, I can't believe you're like the same person at work. And I was like, well, why wouldn't I be? I was like, I am the same person as I am at not work, because
people are not used to that.
Yes,
and they think they have to be a different person.
I guess.
Yeah, because maybe that's what society says or something.
Sure, and I mean, people behave differently in different scenarios and right, and a little bit I get that, but at the same time, I'm pretty much still me, almost anywhere and everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you. Same here. So we're going to get in the fun part of our conversation.
All right.
I have rapid fire questions.
Ooh, okay, lightning round.
These are lightning fast. So
false.
Well, man, that's not good. Okay. No, I'm kidding. So, all right, fill in the blank.
Hit me.
This is a fun one. So, a great leader always
is authentic.
Ooh, love it. What's a book, quote, or idea that changed how you lead?
Oh, I can't remember the title. It's a Brené Brown book that my wife told me to read, and it was great, but I can't remember the name.
All right, say the author again.
Brené Brown.
Perfect. Okay, that's good. We're going to have to look that one up. We'll fact check that one for you.
All right.
So, all right, so what advice would you give to other technical leaders who want to embrace servant leadership but feel stuck in traditional management roles?
Oh, that's an easy one. Listen to your people. Trust your people. Get to know your people. They have jobs and value that are supposed to be like what the team is made of, not you. You're not the team.
I love it. We have gone through a lot of contact here today, and you've been awesome. So, but we're kind of running out of time for today, so we're going to wrap it up, and we appreciate you being here today. And so, everyone, that's a wrap on another episode of Servant Leadership Library. Cool. Jon, thank you for joining. You're a wonderful man, and bringing your sharp, curious, and just the right amount of defiant perspective to this conversation.
Nice.
You've reminded us that leadership isn't just about having all the answers. It's about asking better questions, thinking critically, and staying relentlessly focused on people and purpose behind the tech. So from a challenging norms to inspiring Android-level efficiency, your approach to servant leadership at the technical level shows that even a high-speed environments, we can still lead with heart, service, and bold vision. Even if we don't always call ourselves a visionary. To our listeners, if today's episode challenged you or you're thinking, gave a little spark or inspiration, keep it to yourself. No, don't keep it to yourself. Come on, speak up.
Silence.
So share it, rate it, and let us know, how we did. So until next time, I'm Nicholas Paulukow, reminding you that true leadership isn't just about being in charge. It's about taking care of those who are in charge. So keep serving, keep leading, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
All right.
Man, we went almost 60 minutes.
Really?
Yeah, we nailed this.